She was the pinup girl whose poster once graced so many teenagers' walls. She was one of Charlie's angels, with the cascading hair and that dazzling smile. And in recent years, Farrah Fawcett also became a symbol of the will to survive. But just this morning, the 62-year-old actress lost her valiant battle against cancer. Farrah Fawcett and I had been in touch for many years personally. Professionally, we'd done some wonderful interviews together. Last week, as she struggled to hold on, I went to Los Angeles to talk with some of the people closest to her, including her longtime lover, who was at her side when she died, actor Brian O'Neill. Tonight, we want to celebrate the life, the loves, the legacy of this very special woman. During her last days, as Farrah Fawcett clung to life, fighting to the end in her home and finally in the hospital, those who knew and loved her remembered.
Magical. She had stardust on her.
An original. No one looks like her, sounds like her.
Sexy, beautiful, incredible. She's always been a style icon, obviously imitated by everybody around the world.
I've always thought of her as fearless. Nothing seems to scare her.
She's quite decisive, moves forward, and she doesn't look back and she doesn't regret.
Courageous. An amazing woman with simple roots that took on challenges that others wouldn't try. I always admire women that are independent, that have a dream, and then look as good as she does.
Cancer took Farrah Fawcett's life, but not our enduring memory of her iconic beauty, grit, and courage.
I don't want to just go through life skimming it and being another person on screen and not living.
And what a life she lived. It was, most agree, a spirited journey, and tonight one to be celebrated. The year was 1976, and this poster launched a million fantasies. She was the pinup with the brilliant smile, a mane of golden hair, and that bombshell body. It sold a staggering 12 million copies, the largest ever. Farrah Fawcett burst onto the scene as the it girl of the 1970s, a sex symbol idolized by men and women. Her hair, which became known as the Farrah Do, was copied by millions around the world.
It was an easy, carefree haircut, windblown, but also very sexy and very feminine. Everybody wanted it.
Jose Ibert, the legendary hairstylist, has known and worked with Farrah for over 30 years.
That signature hair would definitely be remembered forever and ever and ever. But I think that Farrah was represented to me what a woman was in the 70s. Woman's lib, there was a freedom about Farrah's look. There was something healthy about her.
It was something different.
Very much so. Back then, women were still wearing their hair quite a little too stiff. And all of a sudden, that freedom about Farrah's hair was unbelievable.
Early in her career, I interviewed Farrah and asked how she saw herself.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put you? No kidding, real honest.
I know I can answer you quite honestly that I've never told the truth.
Oh, tell the truth now.
A 9. Yeah.
Why, but look around the world, my Lord, you're a 10, you're an 11.
No, barely a 9. I was going to say 8.5, but I thought fractions aren't good. I think you have to have all of me in order to think that I'm beautiful. In other words, it's not just my looks. I think I have to speak and move and relate for you to feel beauty from me.
And then 4 years later, this exchange.
Is it tough when you've got a brain in your head and everybody thinks you're just beautiful?
It is. It's annoying. It makes you exasperated. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a curse.
Growing up in Texas, that so-called curse was always there. In 1969, it was her ticket to Hollywood, when as a college beauty queen, Farrah was discovered in this photograph by a talent scout. At first, she was one more model and actress, surviving on guest parts in commercials, selling everything from shampoo to toothpaste.
Mother always told me, sit up straight, eat all your vegetables, and stay out of small foreign cars. But Joey, Mother never told me about Ultra Bright. You promised to teach me to play tennis.
One of her first television appearances was on I Dream of Jeannie.
Here we have a nice forehand And here we have a nice backhand, then we have nice both hands like that.
On the courts, Tiger.
In 1973, she married actor Lee Majors, then starring in The $6 Million Man. 3 years later, everything changed. It was 1976. She put on that red one-piece bathing suit, sold all those posters, and then she changed television forever.
Good morning, angels.
Morning, Charlie.
Charlie's Angels, the undercover, underclothed crime fighters, became an enormous hit and a cultural phenomenon. Charlie's Angels changed the way a lot of people looked at women.
What we had for the first time were women operating in what was heretofore a man's world.
Leonard Goldberg, along with his partner, producer Aaron Spelling, created Charlie's Angels.
She wasn't a great actress then, but she was learning. She just had that way about her. When she would turn and look at you, you were mesmerized.
The poster girl was now a TV star. She and her fellow angels, Jaclyn Smith and Kate Jackson, adorned nearly every magazine cover.
If I could squeeze a gold watch out of Charlie, now would be the perfect time to retire.
But after only 1 year, Farrah walked away from it at the height of her fame. After Farrah was a star, she left the show. Why?
It was a shock. We were never able to pin it down because each time she came up with a reason, we solved the reason, but she still didn't want to come back.
When Farrah makes up her mind to do something, it's well thought out, it's well ordered and planned, and it's right for her.
Jaclyn Smith has known Farrah since their Charlie's Angels days. Today, Jaclyn is a successful businesswoman, selling her own line of clothing and furniture.
It was not an actress leaving, it was my friend, and we were really a team. But what do you say? You know, stay back and keep us company when you want to go?
So it is a mystery to you to this day exactly why Farrah, after 1 year, left Charlie's Angels.
Yes. And the impact she had in that 1 year was amazing. When you talk to people, they go, well, Farrah did the whole show. And you go, no, she only did 1 year. People can't believe she only did 1 year.
The press said Hollywood success had gone to her head. In 1980, I asked her if it had.
Was it a mistake? Would you do it all over again?
Was it a mistake leaving? No, it wasn't a mistake. And yes, I would do it over again.
You would? Even
Yes.
with all this mess and the fact that it almost torpedoed your career?
I felt that I needed to grow. I find that for me personally, and this is in everyday life, if I'm not growing, if I can't be stimulated in a conversation, then I am bored. And I'm not good when I'm bored.
You tried to make her stay.
Oh, absolutely. We tried to make her stay. She wanted a movie career. Of course, she couldn't work for a long time because we had a contract and no one would hire her while she was under contract to us.
Anger and lawsuits followed her departure. Her career faltered, but Farrah was determined to take charge of her life. So she fired her manager and her publicist, and she separated from Lee Majors. The sweet blonde from Texas, she told me in 1980, was gone.
I think that when you're kind of just shoved out there, and you have to be tough, and you're facing tough people, and people are saying bad things about you, that all of a sudden you have to become a little less sweet. And with this surge in strength, you lose a little of the softness, I guess.
Farrah told me she was tired of being the sex symbol, and she wanted to be taken seriously.
I came into a town one way. I became successful before I was ready for it or knew what I was doing, you know, kind of backwards, you know. The success came before I had done what I thought was a good role.
What was the toughest part? Convincing people that you were serious, trying to get the parts? What?
Trying to get a good role.
And she did, by doing an about-face, literally. Her glamour gone, her acting amazing. As an unrecognizable abused wife who was driven to kill her husband in 1984's The Burning Bed. For years, it would remain one of the most highly rated TV movies in history.
School!
The performance earned her the first of 3 Emmy nominations.
I knew that if I was going to stay in the business, I had to change. I mean, I wanted to change.
In the 1980s, Farrah became the reigning queen of television movies.
Forgive me for surviving! Maybe you
To more critical acclaim, she also appeared on Broadway and in the movie version of Extremities as the avenging victim who turns on her rapist. But if her acting career was finally the triumph she always knew it could be, her personal life wasn't. Long before Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous or MTV's Cribs, I often took viewers inside celebrity homes. And in 1980, Farrah was no exception. She lived in this house, which she and ex-husband Lee Majors built high on a mountain overlooking Los Angeles, one of the most beautiful I've ever visited, as I described then. It looks and feels like a star's home. The wood-beam kitchen is complete with its own fruit dehydrator and a built-in barbecue. The largest room in the house is the sunroom. The bedroom has its own fireplace. It includes its own sitting area and a mirror-lined dressing area, and a jacuzzi the size of a small bedroom. But after her marriage failed, it was an empty house, and Farrah told me she was lonely. More than anything else, she wanted to share her home, but not necessarily with another husband. And I asked about her future.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Well, I hope I'll have a baby. I know I'll have a baby. Or
That's
maybe,
the first thing that comes into your mind.
I know.
Baby,
I'm
not the
obsessed
career.
by this, aren't I?
With or without a husband, you'd still want to have a child.
Oh, yes.
Can you imagine being terribly in love again?
Oh, yes. I think that I couldn't enjoy life unless I was in love.
Are you in love?
Oh, yes, I need to be in love.
Farrah was sweetly evasive. She knew I was pressing her to admit that she was romantically involved with actor Ryan O'Neal, who became a star himself in the 1970 film Love Story, ironically playing the husband of a woman dying of cancer.
Yes, I'm in love.
It was the first time she acknowledged their affair, and 4 years later, she was pregnant with his baby, but not married. I hear that the issue of getting married or not has come up with Ryan. He has said publicly that he has asked you to marry him.
He has asked me.
And you've said no.
I am considering. Oh, I'm considering. It's a very, big step.
Marriage?
Mm-hmm.
It's also a big step to have a baby.
Well, yes, definitely.
What you're doing takes, even in this day and age, when things have changed a great deal, it does take courage.
It does? Well, good.
Do you not feel that?
No, I just feel I'm entitled to do what I feel,
You said in an interview you were very fond of Ryan, but that he wanted sometimes to take control of your life. And you said, he's not going to do that with me. If that's what he wants, let him find a 21-year-old starlet. Remember?
Yes. I don't want somebody telling me what to do. I don't want to tell somebody else what to do. So if I don't want it, then I deserve not to have it. That's basically how I feel.
Does he tell you what to do? Is there that kind of
he's very
monstrous
strong with his
yeah.
opinions, but he doesn't tell me what to do. But he definitely gives his opinion.
You're wearing a wedding band.
Mm-hmm. This is from Ryan. Got me this in Paris.
But it doesn't mean anything. And for 17 years, it didn't mean anything. They never married, but remained one of Hollywood's great love stories. You have said that you've never loved anyone the way you loved Farrah. Seems she felt the same way. Why didn't you marry her?
I used to ask her to marry me all the time, but it just got to be a joke, we just joked about it.
In an interview that Farrah and I did years ago, she said that she didn't want to marry you because she thought you might be too bossy.
She said that? I am a little strong with my opinions, and I'm working on that, dealing with it.
But in 1997, they broke up, and dark years followed for Farrah. She briefly dated a man who was charged with assaulting her. Her acting career faded, and her behavior was often strange, if not unconventional. She made the bold decision to pose not once but twice for Playboy at ages 48 and 50. Both issues became the biggest sellers of the decade. In a provocative promotional video, she even used her naked body as a human paintbrush. And then came her rambling appearance on David Letterman's late-night talk show.
Sort of like they'd receive it in, I really thought I was looking out
the window.
Yeah.
People began to question what had happened to her. She seemed disoriented. Some people thought she was, I don't know, on drugs or drunk. What was that all about?
I thought she was silly.
Just
being
silly.
silly. Yeah, and I said to her, couldn't you have cut it in half? And she said, well, I was selling the Playboy magazine, so I thought I would be this aging playmate up on the, and that was my act. I said, well, you could cut that in half too. But no, was she loaded? And no. Too bad that she got that bad rap. I just saw the press, looking for a chance to go after someone that we love. And I'm sure she didn't feel good about it. I'm sure it hurt her, although she never said.
Most troubling for Farrah, their son Redmond, the baby she was desperate for, was arrested in a series of drug charges and is now at age 24 in jail. Farrah adored Redmond and tried so hard to be a good mother, and yet the drugs...
Drugs, heroin, the strongest drug they make.
What went wrong?
Did we miss a beat? Yeah, I'm sure. We missed a couple. He wasn't happy with who he was. He didn't know who Farrah was and why she was so famous, and what did that mean to him. And I don't want to defend him. I'm still mad at him for this. But also, he's in a terrible fix because he may be in the can and lose his mother. And some sheriff will tell him. So I forgive him. And I told him that part of her legacy will be your strength, Redmond, to rebound and then what she stood for will stand. And he agrees with me totally. He knows this is it. This is the end. He is at the bottom of the bottom.
Is part of the problem for Redmond was that he had such a famous mother and had such a famous father?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. What am I supposed to say? I'm sorry about Love Story. What am I supposed to do?
My last interview with Farrah was in 2003, this time as Farrah, the artist and sculptor. From the Charlie's Angels poster to 2 works of art.
Well, and others.
And others. Trying to reinvent her career, in 2005, she signed on to a TV reality series called Chasing Farrah. Ryan was also part of that show.
Catch it. Okay. Cheers.
I'm going to get a glass because you got just the one.
What did he say? Did he say just to get the one?
What is the name of this show again?
It's called,
It's called... Where's the you were going to set the table. You had so many plans.
But in August of 2006, in one of her last public appearances, it seemed the old Farrah was back. At an Emmy tribute to the late Aaron Spelling, a surprise first-time reunion with her fellow angels, and Farrah looked tan and healthy.
And I will be forever grateful. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
A month later, she would be diagnosed with a rare and deadly cancer that would ravage her body and claim her famous hair.
I went over to her house and she said, let's just get rid of it. Spontaneous like that. And we did.
You shaved her head?
I did.
For nearly 2 decades, Farrah Fawcett and Ryan O'Neal carried on a turbulent relationship but never married. They broke up too many times to count, but in 2001 they reunited after Ryan was diagnosed with leukemia. Today he is in remission.
She came right to my side, which I loved her for. And we gradually started to rebuild our relationship.
Then just as Farrah was helping Ryan heal, she was struck by 2 devastating events.
Her mother was ill, and she had to go to Texas. And her mother passed. And I think if I'm right, she started bleeding. I said, you have to get back here right away.
The diagnosis, a relatively rare disease that only affects about 5,000 Americans a year, anal cancer.
Farrah had symptoms for only a fairly brief time before her cancer was diagnosed, so there really wasn't an opportunity to find it earlier. It unfortunately just progressed.
Dr. Lawrence Pirro is the president of the Angeles Clinic and Research Institute. He began seeing Farrah 2.5 years ago after her cancer didn't respond to the first course of treatment. He has been her principal doctor ever since.
By the time I began treating her, she had a situation that was just not curable. It was treatable, but not curable.
Does that mean a death sentence?
Well, it means that we had to use the best tools that we could to try to suppress the tumor, but that we would never get rid of it. So eventually the likelihood is that she would succumb to her tumor.
When you told this to Farrah, that you have a tumor that's incurable, what did she say?
Well, Farrah is an amazing fighter, and the only way she could get through this was to think that I'm going to find something that will cure my tumor.
I panicked. Yeah. I didn't let her know, but I panicked. I've been living with cancer for 8 years at this point, and I saw lots of what cancer can do. And I just knew one thing, that Farrah Fawcett was hard to kill.
In watching her over these last 2 years, that if there is magic, Farrah will make you believe in magic, because you just think she's going to beat it. You just think she's going to beat it.
Where did that courage come from?
She's a border girl, you know, down there by the Mexican border. And they grow them tough there. She used to tell me on walking to school in the summer, she would step on scorpions barefoot. That became kind of a game. Oh my God.
I think she's the most courageous and determined person I've ever met.
Alana Stewart has known Farrah Fawcett for almost 30 years and accompanied her throughout her illness.
We thought she was going to find a cure. We were both kind of Pollyanna-ish about it and very optimistic.
To pursue more forceful treatment, Farrah decided to go to Germany. The feeling is that she went to Germany because they had techniques that we didn't have here, that Germany could have saved her life.
All of the treatments that were done in Germany were treatments that in generally can be done here. This was a particular doctor and team of doctors that were very aggressive about doing this repetitively, and that's the reason that we continued to have her go there.
At the time, it was a hope, a fantastic hope. And Farrah's first a couple of trips went very well. Thing is, you can kill that tumor in the liver. You can kill that one, and you can kill that one, every one you see. But that doesn't mean 2 or 3 don't pop up on their own. So we brought her home.
Farrah began bringing a small video camera to her doctor's appointments. She soon enlisted Alana to help.
She wanted to record everything they said so she could remember it. And I said, okay, how? Since, I'm lucky to be able to use an Instamatic. And she said, here, you push the record button and point it in this direction. And that's how we started filming.
There were 9 tumors in my liver.
Stage 4 cancer.
Last May, NBC reportedly paid several $million to air Farrah's story. Using Farrah's video diary, it documented her trips to Germany to pursue aggressive treatment. Many scenes were raw and devastating, like this one of Farrah vomiting.
We shouldn't have flown today. You're in no shape to fly.
Over 9 million viewers were riveted and inspired by Farrah's apparent willingness to show the destructive and ugly reality of cancer. Did Farrah approve the final cut?
Farrah turned the final cut over to Ryan because she was unable at that point to go into the editing room and, to carry out her vision, and she turned it over to Ryan and asked him to do it because she trusted him.
Farrah's doctors made every effort to prevent her from losing her famous hair, but even that battle was eventually lost. Was it a mistake to choose the treatment that wouldn't take her hair?
We had many discussions about this, and if at any moment the choice would be better to choose a drug where she would lose her hair, we would do that. And in fact, we did.
What was it like when Farrah began to lose that gorgeous hair?
We talked about it constantly because for a long, long time, even when she was getting the treatments, she still had a full head of hair, and we were quite amazed. And then, all of a sudden, her hair started to thin. And like every time Farrah does something like that, I went over to her house and she said, let's just get rid of it. Spontaneous like that. And we did.
You shaved her head?
Yeah.
Was she very upset?
Not at all. We actually, no, we were giggling. We realized that she had an amazing head shape.
I'm glad you left the bangs.
In the NBC documentary, many were shocked to see Farrah without her hair.
She took it in stride like she did everything. And she, you know, when she went out, she wore a cap. And around the house, she didn't wear anything. You know, she just was okay with it.
Was it hard for you to see her without that hair?
No, it was more painful to see her fighting that disease.
Never once after shaving her hair has she ever regretted it, talked about it, cried about it. She just looked forward and marched on.
Bye, Charlie.
They will always be Charlie's angels. But Farrah Fawcett had something else in common with her co-stars, cancer. Jacqueline Smith and Kate Jackson are both breast cancer survivors and had rallied around their ailing angel.
They sit around her bed. They bring her cookies and cakes, and they laugh.
And it's been 30 years.
Yeah. And she ditched them originally. She left the show. And you look at them, even at this stage, and you say, the chemistry is still there.
You have that bond from way back, and you just sort of pick up. And the power of girlfriends is very important when you're dealing with something like this. Certainly the last 2 years have brought us together in a different way. It's a very strong connection, because once you hear those words, cancer, no one imagines it until they hear it. And it bonds you in a way.
For the past several months, Farrah had been confined to her bed, going in and out of consciousness.
And I sat on her bed and I said, talk to me. She just looked at me. So the next day I went in and I sat in the same spot and I looked at her and she said, talk to me. So I know she's around.
In the NBC documentary, their son Redmond was brought from jail to visit his mother. And he got into bed with Farrah. Did she recognize him?
Oh, sure. She was asleep and then suddenly there was her son lying next to her. She hadn't seen him in 3 months.
Did she know that he was in jail?
No, wait a minute. No. If we can keep it from her, we keep it from her. Can't believe that it'll do any good to her condition. Yeah. But the other day something strange happened. I went out to see him at his detention center, and he said to me, will you give her a big kiss for me? And I said, I will, Red. And when I went back to the house, she was lying there, and I said, I saw your son today. She said, oh. I said, he asked me if he could do something. She said, what? I said, give you a big kiss. And she held up her eyes like this, and I reached in and I kissed her. And I could feel the kiss getting harder, and I felt her arms go around me, and she started to rub the top of my head, and I thought, she thinks I'm Redmond. She thinks I'm Redmond. So I just stayed Redmond, and she said, I miss you. I miss you so.
Ryan says Farrah's cancer brought them closer than ever, and he renewed his efforts to marry her.
If she'll feel a little better, I've asked her to marry me again, and she's agreed.
Really?
Swear to God.
Why don't you just go do it?
Well, we will as soon as she can say yes.
Right.
Maybe we can just nod her head. No, I promise you, we will. We will. I've already got my costume ready.
What's your costume?
Well, I'm like a gigolo, you know, and a little thin mustache and the slick black hair. I don't know. We have fun. We tease about that. But she said to me when I asked her to marry me, she said, okay, but prenup. Oh!
So you make her laugh?
Oh, yeah. If she can, I will.
So you really think that you and Farrah will get married?
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Sadly, time ran out, and they never married. But last week during our interviews and before Farrah died, Ryan and Alana were still hopeful.
He loves her so much. He really does. You know, when he walks in the room, her face just lights up.
Do you still feel that Farrah might recover, might make it?
I don't know, Barbara. I did. I really did. I've never given up hope. I've never given up faith. It's getting a little harder now. And, you know, I said to her the other night, I know you're tired, but do you still want to keep on fighting? And she said, yes. And I said, well, then we're right here with you, and we're fighting with you. And I said, and if you change your mind, that's okay too. And she just held her arms up and, you know, she hugged me for a long time.
Did Farrah ever talk to you about death?
No.
Or an afterlife?
She said, am I going to make it?
Mm-hmm. And you said?
I didn't like hearing that. It's the first time she had wavered. So I said, sure, oh sure, you'll make it. And if you don't, I'll go with you.
As Farrah Fawcett has battled to live, Jacqueline Smith, her friend, has been quietly supportive.
What is it? Is it the hair? Is it the smile? Is it the body? It's just the whole package. Her hair. I mean, I've said many times that it could have its own phone line. It had a life of its own, and I think that iconic style will be recreated for generations to come. I think she was truly the girl next door, although I didn't live next door to a girl like Farrah.
What's your favorite memory of Farrah?
It was Gaston, my son's birthday, his 4th birthday. And I looked out the door, and there was Farrah coming up the driveway with little Redmond in her arms, and he wasn't a month old. And there was something about that day, that a connection between Farrah and I, that we're where we wanted to be. This was a dream. We had our guys, and everything was right. I think everybody takes their path. She's definitely an original. I mean, leaving a hit show after a year, painting with her body, sculpting, doing Playboy in her 50s. I mean, she was and is always unpredictable.
You know, it's so interesting that you had your own battle with cancer, breast cancer, in 2003. Farrah was supportive of you then? And
yes, I mean, all three of us. Kate experienced breast cancer, I experienced breast cancer, and then Farrah, in her humor, said, what was it? The water we were drinking? And, you know, I mean, she maintained her humor, which is hard to do in the face of cancer. She had an unrelentless capacity to fight this disease.
not long ago, Farrah wrote a letter to Jacqueline. This is the first time she shared it publicly.
I want to thank you, my dearest friend, for helping me take this ambiguous journey. Fear of everything seems just around the corner every day, and it's my biggest test because I was never bothered by fear. I always felt that if I succeeded, that was great, and if something failed, my attitude was, what's the worst that could happen? A failure. So you just move on. But this fear doesn't work that way. So, dear ones, thank you, with love and appreciation.
Shortly after Farrah Fawcett died this morning, I spoke with her longtime doctor, Lawrence Pirro. Did she die peacefully?
She was very peaceful, she was pain-free, and she was surrounded by love. And that's certainly all we can ask for, and in that sense, she had a beautiful, beautiful time as she transitioned.
Doctor, in these last days, was she conscious enough to talk to people and hear what they had to say? She was that conscious?
You know from your interviews and your relationship with Farrah, Barbara, that Farrah was a very unpredictable person. And just when you thought she was going to turn left, she would turn right. And during these days, it was exactly the same way. Just when you thought she was going to drift off to sleep, she would open her eyes and perk up and say a few words or make a few comments. And so she spent these last days like she spent her whole life surprising people.
Who actually was at Farrah's bedside when she died?
Well, of course, Ryan O'Neal was with her, loving her, talking to her, caressing her, and reliving with her so many great experiences of life.
He talked to her up until her moment of death?
He did, right up until the very moment. Her friend Alana Stewart, who of course was helpful to her throughout this time, Mella Murphy, another of her friends, and myself.
When Ryan was talking to Farrah, what was he saying?
He was talking about everything from how he felt about her to humorous stories of their time together and tender moments and really reliving their life together. He is so in love with Farrah, and he's grappling with how he's going to let go. He calls her an American beauty.
They wanted to get married, but they didn't get married.
The reason that they wanted to marry was really to just kind of ratify in traditional terms of a wedding, a 30-year relationship of love, to establish, the real commitment that they had to one another, and I think especially for Ryan to be able to keep her alive for him. But in fact, they were far more than husband and wife over these years. They were soulmates. Their connection was as deep could be, perhaps far deeper than many husbands and wives. They would have liked that sort of traditional commemoration, but it didn't matter in the end. Time just simply ran out.
Farrah and Ryan's son, Redmond, is in jail and was not with her when she died. Was he in contact with her?
Well, unfortunately, he wasn't able to be present in person, but he did speak to his mother by phone twice yesterday, and he was able to say all the things that he wanted to say, and she heard him, and she was able to be responsive, and so it was a very nice and tender and important, moment for both of them in this closure.
That must have been very important to Farrah to talk to Redmond.
Yes, Farrah had many roles in life. There was no role more important to her than mother. And like for many mothers, when Redmond hurt, Farrah hurt, and she certainly wanted to grab him and squeeze him and solve all of his problems.
From the beginning, you told Farrah that her cancer could not be cured. From the beginning, she fought it. What can we take from this, Doctor?
She really was someone who could look fear in the face and conquer it. And I think when all of us reflect on our own lives, the emotion which controls us so greatly is fear. And I think that was Farrah's message to us, and the way she conducted her own journey is be as fearless as you can be. Don't be intimidated by fear. Keep marching forward. Do what you think is right. Fight for what you want to fight for, whether you're winning the battle or not.
Doctor, can you recall Farrah's last words to you?
They were thank you.
What's the legacy of Farrah Fawcett?
It'll be something, that's for sure. If we have anything to say about it, it will. But it'll take care of itself. She was everybody's love, wasn't she? Everybody's.
Love. It's a legacy of love. Beautiful friend. She's a wonderful mother, daughter, things that I admire.
She was a pin-up actress and free spirit, but in her final journey, Farrah Fawcett played the role of her life. With guts and determination, she showed us what cancer teaches everyone to do, to look in the face of fear and not shudder. When you think about Farrah, do you have any last words?
I love you.
Are you prepared to lose her?
No. I'm very happy going to her house every day if she's awake or not, or tending to her, and that's my life. I'm not interested in anything but seeing to her comfort. That is my role. I don't want it to change. I want her to see her son again. I want her to see the beach again. I want her to sit up.
You've just been so wonderful to her. And it's changed you, too, hasn't it?
Damn it.